So after a fun day at Cleghorn, we noticed a little bit of gear oil smell, and upon further inspection, it looks like we have a leak for the front of the transfer case. You can see right here, this is probably a better shot. You can see right there where it's a little bit wet, and yep, time to change the seal. What's up YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are chasing an oil leak from the front output shaft of my transfer case. Now there is a little rubber seal in there that goes around the output shaft. Looks like it should be an easy replacement, but I am sadly mistaken. To answer your question, yes, the transfer case does need to come out. As you'll see in the video, taking out the front extension housing is possible without removing the transfer case completely from the car. However, reinstalling it is practically impossible. Even with the transfer case removed, it was not easy reinstalling the front extension housing. In this video, I'll show you all the mistakes I made so you can avoid them. As usual, all the tools and parts that I use in this video will be listed in the description down below, so make sure you check that out. Now, this is going to be a two-part video, part one being the front extension housing seal, and part two will be the rear, which I will link somewhere up here once it's available, so make sure you check that out as well. First, you got to drain out the transfer case, and for that, you need the car to be level. This is the transfer case right here, and the drain plug is right there. So in order to get to the drain plug, you will need to take off this little shield, and they are 3 little 12mm bolts. So from the back of the transfer case facing forward, you've got your drain bolt and you've got your fill bolt. They are both 24mm sockets, so make sure you have that handy. And you definitely want to take out the, at least loosen the fill bolt first, so make sure that you can crack that open and then drain all the fluid out. So for the two drain plugs, you've got your fill and your drain. This is drain. The main difference is the drain has the magnet on the back and the fill does not. It's just an empty plug. So for the drain, make sure you put it in the drain hole, because that actually takes up, picks up some of the metal shavings or whatever in the transfer case. And when you do take it out, you see I have some of the stuff right there too. Make sure you clean it off, just a little paper towel or something. Make it clean before you put it back in. Now we're looking at the front of the transfer case. We need to take out the drive shaft. So it's going to be these 4 14mm bolts. I mean nuts. So I found the easiest way to get to the back bolts is just to put the car in neutral and push it forward like maybe a feet or two. The drive shaft spins and then you get to the other bolts. I wouldn't recommend starting the car and driving it. Pushing it should be fine, but if not, you can use jack stands and just spin the wheels, lift up the front of the car or the rear, whichever side you're doing. Up next, we got to take out drive shaft. So after you remove the drive shaft, you actually just swing it out of the way. You have 4 nuts to remove to get the front extension housing off. And I don't know if you can see this. This is one, the other one, and then there's going to be 2 at the top, which you can't see, but you can feel for. So let me take those off and see if I can get the front housing off. Alright, I was finally able to get the front extension housing loose. However, it was not only the 4 bolts, it was actually 6. There's 2 on the side, so you want to get that loose too. However, once I was able to get it loose, it only slides out this far. It hits the corner of the transmission pan right here, so I'm not able to remove it completely. I think the transfer case will need to come out. Okay, so far from what I can gather, there are 6 of these 17 mil bolts that hold the transfer case in. 4 that go this way from back to front, and there are 2 that go front to back. The ones that you can access from the back of the vehicle are going to be this one, and there's 2 up top. And then the ones from the front of the car is, you can see there's a hole right there. That was 1, and there's 1 way up top. I don't know if you can see it, but it's up here. It's not hard to get to. It's just you have to use an extension to get to it, but it's there. We finally got it out. We basically had to remove half the transfer case. Like, it's basically unhooked from the transmission, but we left it up here so we didn't have to unhook any of the breather hoses or any of the wiring or anything like that. But we did get it out. This is it right here. You've got a little plug at the top that you had to unplug before it's able to come out. But next, I'm going to take this gear out, and then we should be able to get to the bearing and finally the seal underneath all this. Let's see right here. I'm going to take out the snap ring first, then we can get to the gear. Use these cool locking pliers, snap lock pliers. The only puller that I found that was able to go into the extension housing with some light modifications is this Harbor Freight one. As you can see from one of the arms, I had to grind it down to make it clear, but it did work in getting the gear out. And I'll have a link to it in the description down below. Whoa, there it is. Ow! Man, how are we gonna get this back in? You tell me. It looks really tight. Really tight. Alright, let me see if I can hammer the shaft out now.
Let me see what it sounds like in the car.
Alright, finally able to get this guy out. The bearing just dropped out of the bottom. And there, after all that, is the seal that we need to replace. So how I got this out, according to the service manual, you hammer it with a rubber mallet, but it didn't work. So what I did was I held the whole unit and just smashed it against this board right here, and then it popped out after a few tries. My hands are a little numb, but we got it out. There we go. See it anywhere leaking? I don't see it, but it's definitely, this is leaking. So $8 part also costs you 8 hours of labor. So we got the new bearing from Toyota. Part number, this guy. And then we got the new seal. Also, this is the part number. Then we're gonna try to put it in. A little bit of grease, not too much. This is actually too much, but whatever. Make sure it's even. Okay, the bearing just slid in really easily with no issue. So next is we got to clean it a little bit and then put the large snap ring back in. Alright, so I put a little bit of grease down here. Snap ring and the new bearing is already in place, so... Oh wait, we should put a little bit of grease on the bearing itself. I put some right here on the seal too, just so I don't accidentally nick it when I install everything. So a little bit's fine. And probably tap it with the hammer or something. So today is actually the next day already. I tried pushing this gear back in by myself with the ice method, and of course it didn't work, so I had to take it to a machine shop, and where they were able to successfully push it in. But one word of advice, make sure you have them check that the actual shaft is pushed in all the way into the bearing. Don't be like me, and because the shaft wasn't pushed in enough, when they got the gear in, it wasn't able to go down enough to clear the snap ring groove. So you know, they were able to fix that obviously, but make sure you let them know ahead of time. You know, to be honest, I would just probably let them push the axle directly through the bearing and then push the gear onto that and have them, you know, completely assemble this. But now let's try to clean off all the surfaces on here and the transfer case and see if we can fit it back on. Okay, that's in place right now. Now here is the tricky part. This is the part I could not get while the transfer case was in the car. So we had to take the transfer case out. And as you can see, while I'm spinning this thing, there's only one way that this thing will go back on. You cannot hammer it. You do not want to hammer it any other way. It will just drop in. Easy. So you want to make sure you take this thing out first, which is the, I guess, the indicator. It goes right here, because if not, it's just going to get hung up. But take your time, and I think we almost got it in. And that is it for the front seal. Now, if you already have the transfer case out, like I did, you might as well do the rear seal and bearing as well, because it's just way easier with it out of the car. You can technically do it in the car, but it is a lot easier. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, and for more Land Cruiser and Overland content, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching.